Greetings, seeker of shadows and hidden truths. If you've arrived here, it's because you're tired of living chained to other people's opinions, addicted to their approval like a drug. And you know it. Every like, every nod, every compliment feels good for a second. But deep down, it eats away at you, because your sense of worth is being rented out to strangers. Today, we're going to tear that need for validation apart, and we'll do it through the sharp eyes of Carl Jung, who understood the human psyche better than most could ever dream. Before we dive in, if you want to keep sharpening your mind, uncovering the darker corners of psychology, and arming yourself with the knowledge most people are too afraid to face, then hit that like button and subscribe. This is not just entertainment. This is a place where we strip away illusions and rebuild something stronger. Jung once said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Think about that for a second. If you were truly able to accept yourself, without masks, without pretending, without bending to what others want you to be, would you still need validation? Probably not. But that's precisely why it feels so impossible. We've been trained since childhood to measure our worth by the gaze of others. Parents reward us when we behave. Teachers praise us when we conform. Society applauds us when we fit the mold. Slowly, almost invisibly, we're programmed to crave approval like oxygen. But Jung didn't believe we were meant to live this way. He saw the human being as a battlefield of opposites, light and shadow, the known and the repressed. And in that war, your hunger for validation is nothing more than a trick your shadow uses to keep you weak, to stop you from becoming whole. Because if you're always seeking someone else's applause, you'll never hear a deeper voice inside of you, the one that whispers who you really are, beyond every mask. Imagine this. A person stands in front of a mirror. Every day they adjust their reflection according to what others want to see. One day they make themselves smaller, more agreeable, because their partner dislikes conflict. Another day, they puff themselves up, louder and more arrogant, because their friends expect it. And with each adjustment, with every performance, the reflection grows blurrier until the person can no longer remember their true face. That is what living for validation does to you. You become a stranger to yourself. And Jung's answer was both radical and liberating. Stop worshiping the mirror of others. Turn inward. Explore the shadow. Face the discomfort of your flaws, your contradictions, your raw impulses. Because the moment you no longer fear who you really are, you stop begging the world to tell you you're enough. And here's where the paradox begins. The more you chase validation, the less you actually receive it. People can smell desperation, even if you try to mask it with confidence. It leaks out in the way you speak, the way you look for eyes in the room, the way you anxiously wait for a reply to your message. Jung would call this the shadow's trick. The parts of yourself you deny end up controlling you from the dark. And when you deny your need for validation, it puppeteers you in even more humiliating ways. But there's a way out. Picture this. You walk into a room full of people. Instead of scanning the crowd to see if you fit in, you anchor yourself in your own presence. You don't ask silently, "Do they like me?" Instead, you declare, "Do I like me in this moment?" That simple shift flips the entire dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer a beggar of attention, but the one holding the power. People are magnetized to those who are self-possessed because it's rare, It feels authentic, and authenticity is irresistible. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires breaking away from the collective's approval. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's the courage to walk your own path, even if no one claps for you along the way. Think about the archetype of the hero in myths. The hero always leaves the village, always walks into the unknown, and only then returns transformed. If he stayed in the village, begging for validation, he'd never become anything more than another villager. Here's the raw truth. Validation is a leash. It looks soft, it feels comforting, but it keeps you tethered. Destroying your need for it means being willing to disappoint people. It means letting them call you selfish, arrogant, different, or even crazy. But in that crucible of judgment, something new is born. Your independence. And once you taste it, even a little, you'll start to realize that the opinions you once lived for are nothing but passing shadows on the wall. Think about how much of your life has been dictated by silent agreements you never signed. You laugh at jokes that don't amuse you. You nod along with ideas you secretly disagree with. You buy things you don't need just to keep up with others. Each of these small betrayals of yourself is a sacrifice at the altar of validation. Jung would argue that this is the reason so many people feel empty. They've traded their soul for approval slips that lose value the moment they're given. Now, imagine flipping that script. Imagine saying no when everything in you trembles, to say yes just to keep the peace. Imagine walking away from a conversation where people expect your agreement and instead carrying the weight of your own truth. It feels dangerous, even rebellious, but that danger is exactly where your freedom hides. Jung believed that true growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from stepping into the friction between who you are and who the world wants you to be. Let me tell you a story. A young man, admired for his charm, spent years bending himself into whatever shape others wanted. At work, he was the agreeable colleague. With friends, he was the entertainer. With family, the dutiful son. But at night, alone, he felt hollow, because none of those masks belonged to him. One day, instead of performing, he remained silent when his boss mocked him in front of others. The silence was uncomfortable, heavy, but it was his, and in that silence, he found a sliver of realness he had never tasted before. That was the beginning of his individuation, the moment he stopped needing validation to exist. This is what Jung meant by confronting the shadow. It's not about erasing your need for validation in one dramatic moment. It's about recognizing the parts of yourself that are desperate for it, then choosing not to let them run your life. The shadow doesn't disappear, but once you face it, it no longer controls you. The real challenge is that society thrives on your hunger for validation. Entire industries are built on it. Social media platforms, advertising, even politics. They all whisper the same message. You're not enough unless someone else approves of you. And we fall for it. Refreshing the feed, counting the likes, adjusting ourselves again and again to fit into a mold that keeps shifting. Jung would have seen this as the collective shadow at work, a masked illusion where billions of people chase reflections instead of substance. But you're not here to be one of them. Destroying your need for validation doesn't mean becoming cold or isolated. It means cutting the strings so that when you do connect with others, it comes from choice, not dependency. It's the difference between offering someone a gift and begging them for scraps. One is power, the other is weakness. Here's a test for you. Think of a decision you made recently. Now, strip away everyone else's opinions, expectations, and judgments. Would you still have made that choice if no one knew about it? If no one ever praised you for it? If the answer is no, then that choice wasn't truly yours. It belonged to the invisible crowd you carry inside your head. Jung believed that most people live like this, haunted not by ghosts, but by the imagined judgments of others. But what happens when you stop playing by those rules? Something radical. You begin to respect yourself. And that respect doesn't come in applause or validation. It comes in silence, in the quiet certainty that you stood your ground. That kind of inner strength is magnetic. People sense it. They might not always agree with you, but they can't ignore you. And here's the part most people never tell you. When you finally strip away your dependence on validation, life doesn't suddenly become easier. It becomes more real. Some friends will drift away because you're no longer bending to fit their expectations. Some opportunities may vanish because you refuse to play the game of flattery. But what you gain is priceless. A spine of steel and a voice that can't be bought. Jung would call this the birth of the self. The moment you step into alignment with the core of who you are, unshaken by the tides of opinion. Think of the wolf who leaves the pack. Alone, the night is colder, the dangers are sharper, but the freedom is intoxicating. No longer bound by the hierarchy, no longer trapped in a role. The wolf discovers its own instincts. That's you when you destroy your need for validation, stepping into the wilderness of your own life, where every step is truly yours. It might sound harsh, but the truth is this: most people will never dare to go that far. They'll cling to approval because it feels safe, because it feels familiar. But safety is a gilded cage, and familiarity is just another word for stagnation. If you're watching this, it means some part of you is already itching to break free, already tired of living on borrowed worth. And once you take even a small step, saying the thing you're afraid to say, acting without asking permission, living without announcing it to the world, you'll feel it. The weight lifts. The silence becomes peaceful instead of terrifying. And you realize that the validation you were chasing outside was just a distorted echo of the validation you refused to give yourself. So here's the ultimate revelation. The need for validation dies the moment you decide that your own approval is enough. Jung understood that wholeness isn't about becoming perfect. It's about embracing every side of yourself. The light, the shadow, the chaos, the contradictions, and standing tall in it. When you do this, no applause can inflate you, and no criticism can shatter you. You become untouchable, not because the world changes, but because you no longer live at its mercy. Think of how many voices you've carried in your head. The teacher who doubted you, the parent who demanded more, the friend who laughed at your dreams, the crowd that told you who to be. Those voices don't vanish when you chase their approval. They grow louder, they control you. But the moment you stop performing for them, the moment you say, "I don't need you to tell me who I am," something incredible happens. Silence, space, power. And in that space, you finally hear the only voice that matters, your own. Picture yourself walking through a crowd. People whisper, some admire, some judge, some ignore. But you keep walking, steady, unshaken. because you no longer belong to them. You belong to yourself. That is freedom. That is strength. That is the life Jung pointed to. Not a life of masks and applause, but a life rooted in authenticity so raw, it makes the world uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it's unstoppable. Here's the hard truth. Not everyone is ready for this. Most will keep begging for likes, applause, validation, because it feels safer. But you're here, listening, because something in you is already tired of the leash. Something in you is ready to burn down the old script and live without needing permission. And if you take that step, if you dare to walk into that fire, you'll discover what few ever do, that the only validation worth having was yours all along. And if this message lit something inside you, if you felt even for a moment that spark of freedom, don't let it go dark. Hit that like button, subscribe, and step deeper into this journey with me. Because this channel isn't just about knowledge, it's about transformation. The next videos will push you even further into the hidden truths of the mind, into the kind of psychology most people are too afraid to face. And trust me, once you see what I have to show you, there will be no going back.